This conference will now be recorded.
So we are recording the conference, and anyone who is just watching this will now know. Again, make sure you mute your phones. Facts, we do have some resources on our website, so if you go to apacolorado.org, you have to search right now just because our website is not acting very nice to us. Some of the functions are acting up and we're working on it, but we do have some tips for telecommuting. We have some platform suggestions. I've been taking feedback from APA national leaders around the state and around the country as to what platforms are working for them, how well they're working. We also have activities for your kids at home. So we do have a lot of information on the website, and we'll be posting this there after it's done. For those of you that don't know, the National Planning Conference in Houston has been canceled. APA is looking at trying to revamp it into an online virtual conference. So those of you that did register should look for more information on that. And I think they're going to open registration back up to everyone, but they will be sending information on that soon. Any money that you had for registration can either be credited towards professional development or your membership renewal. So they'll be providing that information to you. Other questions we keep getting are about AICP and the grace period. A lot of people are struggling to get their credits in. Well, they did extend it to May 29th. So if you're in that 18-19 reporting window, you do have a 1-month extension. There are a lot of free online CMs. The Planning Webcast Series is every Friday from 11 to 12:30, so you can jump on one of those. If you need your law or ethics, there are 2 free on-demand YouTube videos that you can watch. Again, you can access those on the Planning Webcast Series homepage. Lastly, the May exam. A lot of people are asking how they're doing the May AICP exam. Right now, the plan is to still have it, but they are working on ways to do that. They may have to postpone it. They may have you take it at home, but APA is working with Prometrics, I think that's the name of them, to get that done. And then lastly, the Colorado Planning Conference is still on. We're still working towards that. It's in September, but we have looked at our contract. We do know that some things are going to be affected, as in budgets are going to be cut, so we may have less people being able to come due to that. But right now, we are still planning on it and moving forward with that. So I think that's it.
All right. Thanks, Sheila. I just wanted to give a big thanks to everyone for making it. I know you may have Zoom meeting fatigue. I know I've been doing a lot of virtual meetings and a lot of town halls, a lot of listening. And this is my opportunity to, as chapter president, just to say, for showing up to work, thanks for being essential services. Development, continuing the process, continuing great policy and planning is really what we need to be focusing on right now. How can we connect with our communities? How can we get those voices that have been missing from the conversation for a long time? Use this pause in our regularly scheduled work days to really figure out how to connect and how to make great communities. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We have some great panelists today. We're going to start out with Ann Bess Johnson, who's going to take us on a little information about herself. And then after we go through our speakers, we've got Ann, and then Michael Gratis, David Gurman, Peter Wysocki, Travis Parker, Sarah Davis, and then we'll do some additional Q&A. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat window, and we'll try and get those as we go. Ann, over to you. Ann, are you still here? We had her. All right, we might be jumping straight to Michael. I'll fast forward a few slides. We'll come back to Ann when she comes back with us. Michael, are you ready?
I'm ready if you're ready.
I'm ready. All right, let's do it.
All right, so good morning, everybody. I'm just going to give a brief overview. City of Centennial, about 110,000 people, and we're located in South Metro Denver. We began working remotely on March 17th, and the date has been extended at least twice. Right now, our tentative date to go back still is mid-April. However, I imagine that will be extended. For the time being, we're doing council meetings via Zoom. Public participation is a little bit limited right now, and we are definitely right now not considering any quasi-judicial hearings for City Council, nor do we have any other boards or commissions meeting. With regards to planning projects, the comprehensive planning projects that we have right now, nothing is going to council anytime soon. And then with regards to any land use cases that might require a community meeting or public hearing, we're just in the position to where we don't have any that need to go to council or planning and zoning commission yet. But we imagine if this continues into May and June, we will have to quickly look at how we're able to hold public meetings, get public input successfully, while also ensuring that everybody has due process rights. But for the time being, we'll be looking towards the Colorado Municipal League. They appear to be a really great resource on how to do these things effectively. City of Centennial has been doing e-review or plan review electronically for quite some time. 2 years ago, we upgraded our software, and that has made a big difference because we're able to access it remotely. So staff is able to log into their work computers from anywhere, log into our FTP server, and continue reviewing things as if they always have. However, towards the end of a project, we require paper copies of agreements, documents. We require site plan and plat milers to be recorded. The majority of that has been able to go to electronic, but we're still working on large format document recording with Arapahoe County, which is where we record those documents. Something that's been really successful for us is, again, as we've continued working remotely, we are still doing on-site engineering, planning, and building inspections. And then for the interior of residential, single-family residential projects, we are still performing inspections, albeit virtually. So I know that I emailed Sheila kind of our guidelines for how we're doing electronic inspections. Sheila, if you'd love to share those maybe later, that would be great. We're more than happy to have those go out. But we're working with individuals who have iPads or smartphones with cameras. We've asked them to have ladders, flashlights, measuring tools, so that they can do some small scale residential inspections. That's been able to work surprisingly really well. And I think that's been able to be a saving grace for our community in allowing us to continue those very important inspections. With regards to planning and zoning code enforcement, we do have a code enforcement team that works pretty diligently in our community. But lately, what they've been doing is just focusing on immediate safety concerns. So issues related to temporary signs, queuing in shopping centers, where maybe there traditionally wasn't any restaurant queuing because everybody's doing so much pickup and takeout. We're working with people on those, not too concerns, not many red flags yet, but we only would act code enforcement wise in situations where maybe there's an immediate public safety concern, such as queuing into a street or signs that are located within site triangles. But it seems like things have worked pretty well for us. Next slide, please.
Michael, what software are you using for your permit or for your e-document, your plan review?
Yeah, so we're using a program called Intergov, which is a Tyler Technologies tool, but there are others. Harris Technologies has Enterprise. For communities that don't have those electronic things yet, even using something as simple as Dropbox, if you haven't used it, is really helpful to get documents back and forth. So quickly, with regards to personal and personnel management technology, our city has allowed us to take our city technology home. So I practically took my entire desk home with me. That's been really helpful to ensure that I can keep working as if I'm there. Supervision, supervising with staff. If you're not doing this already in the office, having daily communication, I think, is really important. My staff and I meet every single morning virtually, and we're able to go over things that way. That's been great. Work schedules. Everybody has a different home life. Some people have home obligations, some people have children. I would say that there seems to be kind of a varying mode by which people are operating. And our staff, again, as long as you're communicating, that's what's really important for us. We are being able to receive interactions from the public with city issued cell phones, and then also we're checking our zoning hotline, if you will. People are leaving voicemail, we get those emailed to us, and then we're getting back to them. But I have staff that maybe will take a siesta, if you will, if they want to take a walk at lunch, that maybe they'd be gone a little bit longer than they would have otherwise, or they have kids that they're working on schoolwork with. As long as you're being transparent, I think that that's a really great thing to do. Also, I don't think it's realistic to expect that everybody's going to be as productive as they would in the office, or in some cases, they're more productive than they would be at the office. Some challenges for us, we had a COOP plan that we've been able to implement, and thankfully we had one. If you don't have one, we have resources to show you what ours looks like. But there have been some really quick and dirty e-process improvements that we've made. And so I think challenges with that will be, we did it really quick. I just hope we don't miss anything. And then economic recovery. I think for us right now, it's understanding what businesses need and want, and then probably working with those businesses as they get up back on their feet, hopefully in a couple months. That's working them through the federal or state process for applying for grant funding or other relief.
Great. Thanks, Michael.
Thank
Anne,
you.
Anne, are you back with us?
I am.
Okay, I'll go back to your slides and then we'll start from there. All right, this is your first one, right?
Yep. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, thank you all. So Evans has about 20,000 residents. State Highway 85 goes through Evans on the east, and our northern boundary is either US 34 or the city of Greeley. Now, our community development team is relatively new as of November 2019, and 3 of our 5 team members have been on board less than 6 months. And in fact, our city planner was on the job approximately 3 weeks before we did start remote work. So there's some special challenges, but there's also great opportunity to build the team to work more efficiently and entrepreneurially during this time. So you can go to the next slide. What we've been trying to work on is we had plans to go all electronic instead of paper. Evans is a small community. We don't have a large budget. So it's bringing the ideas and the hopes of a 21st century planning department into reality a lot quicker. So our city hall was closed to the public since approximately March 16th. And then all staff, I had everybody test out their systems the week prior because we knew we would be going to remote work. We had been planning that way. So all staff has been working remotely since the 18th of March. Our city HR and risk management team have devised re-entry when you go back into City Hall, what that process is. Everybody's following that process. Really, it's recognizing that this is a stressful time, as we've heard from other speakers before. And just remember that adults need to hear things 7 times before they remember the message. So communicate often. And again, embrace this as an opportunity for change. What we're wanting to do is, it's accelerated because of COVID, but we're wanting to embrace this as we were planning on doing this, which we were, by December. It's just now happening earlier because we don't want the new process to be tied to COVID. Goals, it's really business as usual, if not business improved attitude. Encouraging and empowering staff to look for opportunities to perform more efficiently and embracing that opportunity to change. We're also wanting to acknowledge that this is stressful for everybody. And I've heard speakers before me talk about being a therapist more than anything. And the applicant expectations are to be a transparent process, a guaranteed end, maintaining that connectivity through communication, a lot more hand-holding and making accommodations than we did before, but that's okay because we're servants. That continuity of service, again, we had the goal of 90% of all of our submittals to happen online and get rid of paper by the end of 2020. So we're just redoing this now. And we rolled it out actually before we were working remotely. We duplicated files onto Microsoft Teams for some of the more important work that we were performing, and we tested it before going into shutdown. So the toolbox that we're working with are just really understanding personal and business perspectives, be flexible and innovative to resolve issues. I have daily standing calls with the new planner and then daily text calls and emails with our building department, daily texts and emails with neighborhood services team. It's really understanding how do they want to be communicated with and what team needs are as well. We use Community Core for our building permit submittal and management. We're utilizing Dropbox for planning and large building permit submittals. And then we use Microsoft Teams for conference calls, team calls, sharing screens, replication of city e-files, etc. And then we're also, all of us are keeping a list of lessons learned to implement in the future so that, we can share what we've learned through this. Now, as far as staff report is going, staff support, it's really important because, they're feeling disconnected. Some, if they're introverts, they might really love this. But for those of us that are extroverts, we need people and that energy to keep us going. You can do virtual meetings through Microsoft Teams. You can all get a free conference call number. It's just freeconferencecall.net or com. We're looking at public engagement ideas through the Esri platforms and using virtual polling and surveys and making them interactive and fun, kind of like games. And then this is an opportunity for us to clean up our website. And then, site visits, postings, and publications are still happening as normal. And then going to that next slide, we're waiting for more direction like everybody is on Planning Commission and City Council. Our land use process for current planning is still happening as normal, with the exception of that whole hearing thing. From a strategic planning standpoint, we're right in the middle of kicking off a water conservation plan, our comprehensive plan, and our transportation and trails master plan. And we're just retrofitting our ideas for engagement through, again, the Esri products. And then I'm looking at this also as an opportunity to build greater community involvement and engagement through small things such as virtual food drives and other ways to be engaging the whole public so that when we're done, we have more loyalty and commitment towards the City of Evans. And that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Anne. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the Esri product that you're using? Is it Hubs or Esri Urban or just Story Maps?
Yeah, we're using Story Map for our comprehensive plan. And then I'm not a GIS expert, so I'm sorry I cannot tell you the exact programs, but if somebody has a question regarding that, please get that to Michelle and I'll respond to you. But we are using Story Maps, and we're going to be using a polling product as well. So sorry, I can't give all of that information right now.
That's great. Thanks, Anne. David, we're going to go to you. So moving on to David Gurman with the City of Westminster. Dave, take it away. Unless we lost David.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Dave Gurman, City of Westminster, and very happy to be here. Go ahead and to my next slide, please. So we established early on in our city that, as my little title indicates here, that we had to get everything up and running and continue our essential services as soon as possible. The show must go on. Basically, we initiated our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, early on. We closed to the public on March 17th, and from then on, it was really about how we could still deliver all of those essential things to our citizens, our developers, our businesses, with the minimum of heartache on everybody's part. We did have to kind of back things up for maybe the first few days while we figured out how we were going to do things, but then we jumped right in, and it gets it gets easier. Next slide, please. We use a lot of go-to meetings. We're heavily reliant on email and not so much on the telephone. Folks are used to calling us at City Hall, for example, and we really have not tackled the idea of having everyone with a separate phone number in their home office. So we've asked everybody, and we've put on our answering machines and so forth, that our messages rather, that please email us, and we've given them email addresses. So we're heavily using email for just general communication, and we do set up meetings with developers and stuff and outside parties, and even internally very heavily using GoToMeeting. Michelle, our chapter president, she was with us in December of 2016 and was instrumental in bringing on the program called Track It, which is now referred to as Central Square or Community Development. But that software is a project management and review application, and it tracks all kinds of the elements that you would need, the dates, the times, the steps that needed to be completed, as well as being a place to store documents and transfer them back and forth. So that's been up and running for us since 2016. We still use that today. We've refined it many times, and it really works well. And it's really great in the city of Westminster. Our development community is actually very familiar with it at this point and used to using it. So that was an advantage we had sort of up front. We've done one public hearing so far. It was a city council meeting. We used GoToWebinar, and we had all of our citizens who had comments write them into us in advance via email. Our IT department and our city clerk's office, and a little bit with us in planning, we're all working together to see if we can find better solutions where people can message in or call in on a real-time basis and feel more connected. And of course, as was already mentioned, we're also keeping tabs with CML, Colorado Municipal League, and our city attorney's office to make sure that whatever we arrive at is going to meet all of the rules and laws, and make sure that we're staying on par there. Next slide, please. We have learned that it's rough at the beginning, but as we do it more, it gets easier. And practice makes perfect. It's the old cliche, but it is true. We've come across same problems happening over and over for people. Those are dwindling because we're learning from our mistakes and how to do things. It does get easier. It was very hard to lose each other. We're all trained as planners to be with people and to interact with people, whether it's internally or externally. And there's a big blow when you lose that contact. And we recognize also that our morale was and really still is being brought down by everything that's going on. I mean, you can't look at the news, you can't look at news websites, you really can't even go online anymore without seeing something having to do with COVID. And the news is often very grim. And so we recognized all that, and we're trying to keep people's spirits up and to address people's anxieties as best we can, and a multiple strategies for doing so. Our public hearings, we did find, as mentioned a little earlier, they are more challenging, but again, we're working to try and improve that. And we recognized early on that everything takes longer. Like our go-to meetings are versus an everyone in person in the room kind of meeting was typically lasting an hour and a half longer than just a meeting where we all got together in the room. So just because there were so many more technical details. But again, the more we do it, the faster it gets. And next slide, please. And finally, just a few more observations. Our customers, they seem to be very understanding. And I'm really speaking about external people. Our internal people have always been great, but our external people have been great too. They've demonstrated patience. They've shown us a spirit of cooperation. They recognize what's going on. It's going on for them too. They're having the same difficulties we are, and I think it's important that we all keep that in mind. What we're facing, they're facing. There really is nowhere to go, no place to hide. You can't run away from this. Everybody's in the same boat, and they get it. And I think that they'll become less patient the longer this goes, but hopefully we'll be better at our game, and it'll still seem seamless because we'll be doing a better job, and so they won't need to be as patient. And that really brings me to the next point. Patience is your empowering tool. If you can exhibit patience for everything that's going on, and that's internally at work, internally with your family, with your kids, with your spouse, your significant other, there's a lot of rough emotion, and we're a little frayed around the edges. So patience is what keeps it all going. People act differently. They say things. They do things that are unusual for them. Patience is how you get through that. Maintaining the work-life balance and separation, this was already alluded to too, but when you're working at home, I've had several nights, for example, where I just keep working and I realize, oh crap, it's, my shift ended hours ago kind of thing. And you have to kind of train yourself. It's a new ball game when you don't get up sort of at the closing bell and drive home or walk home, ride home, whatever. Now you're in your home. So you have to work to maintain that balance, that separation. And the final thing I would say is you got to encourage each other. I was talking to my boss, and he said he really finds it beneficial to do that by video, by voice, and I agree. The more human contact we have, the better off we are. And of course, we can't do it in person, but talk to each other, video chat each other. But above all, encourage each other in every way you can. Remember that everyone is feeling the same pain and the same concerns. We all have the same fears and anxieties. So the more we can stand with each other, the better off we'll be. And last slide, please. If I can help anybody, feel free to reach out to me. And my last slide does have my email address. Happy to be involved, take questions offline, and so forth. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so we've had a couple of questions come in. One is, have your attorneys determined that development review is an essential service?
We decided that it was a continuation of operations, and for us, in planning it, we decided that it was essential to keep doing that. It wasn't essential from the point of view of say dealing with emergency operations like we would with COVID, but the city as a whole is trying to maintain all of the services that we provided to our public before all of this started. So from that perspective, yes.
Great, thanks. And we've got another question about public hearings and they're meeting the requirements of state law. And I'm going to hold that one until after Travis presents. So Peter, you're up next, and your cover slide cracks me up. So we'll go ahead and let you take it away. Peter.
I'm here.
All you.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. No, that's not a picture of me, but it is my idol. And if you're familiar with Parks and Recreation, the show, that's Ron Swanson. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our department. Obviously, a pretty big city of about 500,000 people. So I cover a number of different divisions. Of course, the typical current and long-range planning, neighborhood services, which is code enforcement, real estate services, community development, and homeless prevention and response. My presentation today will primarily concentrate on the planning division, maybe a little bit of code enforcement, but my comments are about our development review services primarily. So next slide. And of course, with a bunch of planners in the room, or at least virtual room, it'd be great, right? I mean, we still need to issue permits and land use entitlement approvals. So business as usual at City of Colorado Springs. So next slide. I think somebody already mentioned the COOP plan. So we, all the departments within the City of Colorado Springs already had continuation of operations plans, which identified the essential job functions or tasks within each department. We, of course, relied heavily on the mayor's declaration of state of emergency that was issued about 3 weeks ago, and his expectations. We are a strong mayor form of government. He issued a declaration of emergency basically to assign additional executive powers to the mayors, to the administrative branch of our government, versus the city council, and of course rely on the governor's stay-at-home executive order. Now, there was a question raised whether or not development review is essential function, and I think for the purposes of the COVID situation, we believe that code enforcement, development review are essential functions, and we continue the operations as normal, albeit virtually. So next slide. So early on, we needed to make a determination, of course, like many other departments and cities, who gets to stay home, who can work remotely. Most of the planning staff already had laptops, so the transition was fairly easy for them. We did allow for those that have laptops to take their docking stations, their large monitors home. Our IT at this point is not permitting to take desktop homes, and there's a long email explaining of why that's not advisable at this point. It's primarily due to cybersecurity reasons, but they are working on it to allow those that do not have desks or laptops that they can take desktops home. Our code enforcement division, our code enforcement officers basically report to work. They don't come into the office. They basically drive their personal vehicles to the parking garage and then get into their city vehicles and are not required to report to the office. We do have a quality of life team that deals with homeless camp cleanups. They continue to do so. We did make a decision that enforcing the city's no camping ordinance will continue. So our quality of life team maintains that service. Unfortunately, there are some positions that do need to work from the office. Either they can't take the computers home, or simply their functions require them to be at the office. Now, I will say the majority of the planning division, that includes comp planning as well as current planning, is working remotely. We're also implementing alternating office schedule and coverage. The senior staff alternates. I'll let them work that out among themselves. I think all of us need a little break from working at home, so we're doing that on a volunteer type system. The key is to have staff working somehow. If there's projects that were kind of always put on the back burner, filing, just those sorts of things, we're trying to keep people busy. And of course, I think we need to get into some of the human aspects of how different people, different individuals are reacting or emotionally reacting to the pandemic. I'll get into that a little bit later. So next slide.
Peter, before we move on, can you describe what the front counter functions are that are still open and how you're handling social?
No. So when we actually closed our admin building, so the admin building houses about 400 employees, various different departments. I think the next slide might have that. So we do have a drop box, and so I'll get into that, but I'll just answer the question real quickly. The main lobby is open, and that is where our drop box is for dropping off plans, picking up plans, and so on and so forth. But our front counter, we're on the 7th floor actually, so only the lobby is open. Okay. So we can go back to so public meetings. Early on, City Council approved a resolution suspending all quasi-judicial hearings that extended to other boards and commissions, including the Planning Commission and our Downtown Review Board. In fact, later today, I am having a meeting with our City Attorney's Office. They written an opinion on what software they feel comfortable utilizing to hold those required public hearings. So I'll know more this afternoon. I can certainly share that with Sheila to see what at least our legal opinion is. I continually update our boards and commissions on the status. We did cancel our March meetings, hopeful for April meeting, but it's still uncertain at this point. I did reach out early on to to all the commissions and our boards to be prepared late April for any special meetings that we may need to hold. And they certainly understand that. And those that feel comfortable attending the meetings, certainly we would like them to attend. But basically, we're delaying all our quasi-judicial items until we have a good, solid legal opinion. We're not holding, at this point, not holding any community or neighborhood meetings. Most of our applications can be viewed online. All the planners can do e-reviews through a number of different software applications. I won't get into those details, but very similar to all the other cities. So next slide. Okay, so once again, nope, the other one. Because I think business as usual, we did have a very interesting comment about a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of a small print, so I'll read it. And I quote, this corona thing is just an excuse not to do your job. It's just another bureaucratic excuse to slow everything down. That was really the only negative comment that I know of that we've received. Of course, we're holding virtual staff meetings, meetings with our clients and customers. We use Microsoft Teams, WebEx, GoToMeetings, all the platforms that are available. One thing that I would like to stress, particularly to the supervisors and managers that are watching this, as well as the planners, the staff, there need to be clear expectations of what is expected of the entire crew, both on the management side and on the employee side, as we deal with working remotely. So next slide. And that's my dog, by the way. He wasn't much help, but keeps me company. I'll get into kind of all the other stuff that I think it's important to communicate to everyone, is that clear communication and frequent updates to the employees, to our boards and commissions is critical. I think pretty much all the speakers mentioned that we're kind of trained to have in-person meetings and working groups. So continued communication, just updates about the organization itself. What are plans? How long will this stay at work order last, and so on and so forth. Be flexible. Working remotely may mean, and often does, it does with me, that I don't necessarily work from 8 to 5. Can work earlier, later. We need to be understanding that means that working remotely may mean flexible work hours. In my opinion, as long as the work gets done, that's okay. Then we do need to recognize that. Of course, we can't deny that this pandemic will have a significant impact on our regional, local, as well as obviously national and world economy. We, in the city of Colorado Springs, we've been already tasked with freezing our budgets. So all non-discretionary spending is frozen at this point, which means that as managers, we need to reprioritize work plans, see if we need to shift folks from different divisions just to fill the gaps, particularly if there's a hiring freeze. I think most of you should be aware of this, but yesterday, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act became effective, provides additional protections for employees, including extending FMLA provisions for individuals that need to stay home with minors for homeschooling. So I think we need to certainly continue to accommodate flexible schedules. And there's this topic of exempt versus not exempt employees. Yes, is that my sign to move quickly? Yep, I got it. That is a challenge. I think from a supervisory perspective, we need to recognize that. And I'll just go through these really quickly. Obviously, IT departments are critical of deploying remote working. I think when this is all said and done, we should really support our IT departments in really helping us to become more technologically prepared for instances like this. So that's all I've got.
Great. Thank you very much. Travis, we're moving on to you.
Good morning, everybody. So we've had a lot of discussion already about the public hearings, the online hearings, and Lakewood is in the fortunate position of having solved this issue several years ago. We, in 2016, set out to move our public hearings online long before anybody anticipated Corona. Our goal was participate. We knew that our citizens wanted to participate on their own time and from their own home and not give up hours of their weekday evenings to come to a public hearing. So our goal was to replicate that online in a way that didn't increase staff time, that was legal and effective for quasi-judicial cases, and was simple for staff and for commission members and everybody else. So in the beginning, we looked at other products on the market. We looked at all the town hall software, things like MetroQuest and Bang the Table that are really good at big projects and you know, comprehensive plans and getting a lot of input for something big, but aren't really designed for the legal and procedural challenges of a weekly hearing. And so we met with a web development company and formed a public-private partnership to create this from scratch, to create software specifically designed to replicate online hearings in a legal and effective way. And the result was Lakewood Speaks, that we've been using for 3 years and is now, the software is now available and being used across the country. So basically the concept behind it is taking the hearing that traditionally takes place in about a 3-hour time period or a 4-hour time period on a weeknight and spreading that out over the course of days in an online format. And if you think about the steps that take place in a public hearing, right? You've got the one that everybody already allows online is the materials, the staff report and the site plan and that sort of thing, and that we send electronically to our commissions and put online for our public. But everything else traditionally happens in person, right? The presentations by the staff and the applicants, the questions and comments from the public, followed by discussion and then a vote by the board or the commission, right? So what we've done is taken everything from that discussion back and put that online in Lakewood. So on Lakewood Speaks, our citizens can go on and they can open the agenda for a coming meeting. You can see a screenshot of a recent meeting with, on the left, all of the items for that meeting. And when you click on one on the right, all of the information, all of the public hearing information for that item. So the presentation, the staff reports, and everything else. And citizens can interact. They can directly interact with the planner, so ask questions offline, sort of in a non-public way, and they can leave their public comment on this site. If you think about it, this is the public hearing. This is the actual meeting over a multi-day period now. And so that's how it meets open meeting laws. So everything is available to everyone equally. The commissioners, the citizens, everyone's using this site. There isn't a packet posted somewhere else. This is the packet, and this is the public hearing process and material. It meets ex parte communication restrictions. Commissioners can't communicate individually with each other. They can't communicate individually with the public. Everything that's available to one of them is available across the board to all of them equally. And then, so moving forward to this slide, and thanks for keeping me moving. Basically, the thought here is it was easy for us to transition to a post-COVID world. Prior to COVID, we continued to hold our hearings live after that, that online public comment period. Now we do a straight Zoom call. And so we still have the 10-day or however long period of public hearing and public comment online. Now when the public comment closes, prior to the start of the Zoom call, our council gets on, having seen the presentations online, having read all the comments online, and only are doing those last 2 steps of the meeting. They're doing the discussion and the vote. And so our meetings are still legally following the same format and the same process. It's just an extended time period. Now, some of you may be asking, well, why not just do the Zoom call? Why not just still have a live meeting, invite the public, and skip all the pre-stuff and just have that 3-hour session on a weeknight? Well, setting aside the advantages of having the longer period for people to comment and give their thoughts, which our commission really loves, I challenge everyone to go on after this webinar and Google the phrase City Council Zoom bombed. And you will see why city councils are having problems these last couple of weeks with allowing the public onto their Zoom calls. It's not a path you want to go down. So we have staff and council on the Zoom call, and it's streamed onto the site for people to watch. So people's ability to participate is on the site, not directly in the Zoom call. So obviously this has been going on. You can go to the last slide then. I have been hearing a lot from around the country. In the past 2 weeks, I've been doing 2 to 3 demos of our site a day for cities across the country and as far as Australia. There are a lot of people adopting it right now because it does meet the current need. I'm happy to do that for anybody here. If you reach out to me, I'm happy to show your city, your staff, how our site works and how you can adopt it. It's cheap and easy. It takes a couple days to set up, and it costs just a couple $100s. So it's not expensive or hard to do, and there's really no reason that anybody who wants this service can't be running it next week. In case you want to skip working with me and want to go to the company directly, I put their website on there as well. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Travis. Really appreciate it. Moving on to Sarah. Take it away.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Davis, and I'm the founder and CEO of SRD Consulting, as well as the current VP of Communications for APA Colorado. At the end of 2016, I joined Tesla as a remote worker. And so for the better part of the last 3.5 years, have been working remotely and read every top 10 list for working from home that you can think of. So you don't have to. And I'll be pretty quick, but a lot of my fellow panelists have touched on many of these topics. And I'll just pull out a few that are a little bit more unique. I think one, still make sure you're integrating some form of a commute, whether you were walking to the bus, riding your bike, or driving to work. A commute is a good bookend to your day, and I think it's really easy for us to get up, brush your teeth, sit in front of our computer and get to work, and as others have mentioned, kind of work into the night. And so I've found that kind of choosing an end time is a good way to keep me honest and get outside while the weather is cooperating. A couple other things that I would just hit on really hard are, communication is so important during these times, whether you're bringing on new employees. I hired someone at the beginning of March, so I am managing remotely after only being in person for a little less than 2 weeks. So, over communication at this time is kind of part and parcel to what we're all dealing with. So if you were, having weekly team meetings, maybe those need to shift to every other day. Obviously, the reports that you have, or likewise your manager, and you can find something that works for you, but integrate video chat when and if you can. I'm personally a little camera shy a lot of the time, but it is a great way to just get that softer side of people, see body language, see smiles, get a head nod. We're used to sitting in meetings or across the counter from each other. And when we're over the phone, sometimes those nuances can get lost, even more so when we're only communicating over email. One other thing I would say is try to integrate some water cooler talk. It's really easy to get into, we must keep business on track and as usual, and we kind of forget that, maybe we talk to Nancy in accounting sometimes, or Joe over in the building department. See what you can do to kind of reach out to those folks and kind of integrate that more free, fun chatting time. Likewise in your meetings, if you can set aside a few minutes at the beginning just to check in on how everybody is, it really helps, with that mental health piece. I think you can go to the next slide. One other thing I'll just mention, as we're talking about tools, you want to make sure that your team has what they need. When I started at Tesla, I didn't realize how many phone calls I was going to be on, and my 450 minutes a month just weren't cutting it. So make sure if people are using, their own personal Wi-Fi, their own phone that they have everything that they need from a data and minutes perspective. This is shifting our culture a little bit. And so, embrace virtual meetings, make sure that you're working with your attorney and your IT departments to fully vet tools. There's a need to bring things online, but as Travis pointed out, Zoom bombing is a thing. And some of these platforms are more secure than others. Some of the streaming versions allow you to just have people in listen only mode. So make sure that you're looking at those things, but then also recognize, what meetings can we kind of eliminate or maybe reduce in these times, and find other ways of communication that work. There's a lot of great project management and collaborative tools out there, Trello, Clockify if you're needing people to track their time and they can't connect to your VPN or what have you. And yeah, I'm happy to follow up with people offline if you want to talk more about some of those other tools. And of course, make it fun. Every single square on this bingo card I can relate to and have had happen over the last several weeks. So, just make sure that we're keeping it light. We are working with spouses shoulder to shoulder, with children at our side, and even dogs that can bark and be quite loud. So just know that we're all doing our best, and we all want to be back in the office. So even the introverts in us, I think, are kind of getting a little stir crazy. So yeah, stay flexible, make it fun, and we will be on the other side of this when we can hug each other and look at each other in the face and not just over video. So I look forward to those times.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. We have about 8 minutes of time, so we're doing a hard stop at 10. So just a couple follow-up questions. Travis, I think there's a ton of interest in hearing more about your online meetings and the tech you're using. Maybe we can do another standalone webinar that's just about the public meeting process. Next week, we're going to be talking community engagement and online platforms, or what we're doing instead of face-to-face, and how long this might last. Let me pick one question of those that were submitted before our meeting, a bit more chatty, Kathy type, and maybe everybody take 1 minute and give us your answer, everybody meaning the panelists. So we'll start with Anne, if you're around. In what ways do you expect the threat of viral epidemics to influence the design of communities we build in the future? And if I don't have Anne, then we'll go Michael.
Yeah,
Michael?
hey, yeah, not a problem. So what I'm thinking is I sometimes worry that people will look to say low density is a means by which to protect people from public health epidemics. And I think we as planners need to talk about how that might not necessarily be the case. And I'm trying to think of other previous pandemics where magically overnight, icing stations popped up everywhere. Haven't really thought about what this will do, but I imagine we'll see these other small scale improvements just put in everywhere. And after a couple of years, we'll forget why we did it, but we'll accept it.
Great, thanks. David, Peter, Travis, Sarah, any other?
I'm here. I would throw in that you might see a greater emphasis on communication abilities so that when problems arise, folks have more resources. I know one of the concerns, for example, on the virtual public hearing is how do you include folks that don't have access to computers and so forth, or to the internet or to electronic means. I think we'll see more development in that general direction, whether it's through private public partnerships, directly from private companies such as your cell companies and whatnot, or just general infrastructure design elements as we continue, especially in rural communities who are the most challenged of all. Folks who are kind of, if you will, the colloquialism is, off the grid or way out in the boondocks kind of thing. These folks often cannot connect. So finding ways to improve that, I think, is something you'll see as we go forward.
Great. Sarah, Peter?
So, yeah, just, well, I think a pretty good topic of 5G and small cell towers. I think we're learning that, I mean, my kids couldn't get on Schoology yesterday, and I don't know if it was a wireless issue or a school issue, but nonetheless, I think telecommunication and how we look at cell towers and 5G systems, I don't know if this will really affect the physical planning. Certainly, there could be some discussion or debate that now we should not approve as much high density projects. I just, I hope we don't use the coronavirus to make the argument that high density now makes communities unsafe or unhealthy. I think there's an argument to be made that it should be higher density because then we can walk to places and I don't know. I just don't think it will affect physical planning in the long term.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Sarah, Travis?
I would just add, I mean, I think one thing that we're recognizing is what's a need versus what's a nice to have. And through that lens, I think how auto-dependent we are as a society is becoming really clear in terms of like, when do we actually need to go and drive around and use our cars to get places? I'm seeing a lot more children playing outside because I feel like their parents feel like it's safer for them to be out there with less cars on the road. The city of Denver is doing a survey right now to see if there are certain roads that can be pedestrian only during this time. And I think I'm hoping that, there's some really great data points that come out of this from a sustainability standpoint in terms of air quality and that we see a shift to maybe we work from home a few days a week and kind of have a more blended life.
Right. Travis?
Yeah, I was going to say two things. I think I agree with others that there's going to be a shift in coming out of this and how we work. And I think that there will be a lot more remote working coming out of this. But second, also to get back to Peter's thing and hoping that people don't use this, one thing I think we run the risk of is less push towards new mass transit and people having more fear of mass transit because they're comfortable driving alone and, in virus situations, less comfortable traveling in confined situations with others. So I think that's something we need to keep our eye on.
Great. Very good.
I would just,
go ahead.
I just want to add, I think it could be interesting to see when about 2 or 3 months, how business operations, not just in planning departments, but in city government, county government, and even the private sector, how we will we revert back to the old normal? Or is this kind of the new normal and then the expectation of either employees or even customers, the desire to work more remotely? And I think we as organizations need to be prepared how we kind of go back to the old normal. And I have a feeling we may need to adjust our normal business operations.
Great. On that, I will thank everyone for their time. Panelists, thank you for putting together the slides and being willing to share your thoughts and wisdom with us. We will be sharing the presentation. There's a lot of resources on APA Colorado's website. As always, if you have questions, reach out to us. And thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.